should I make the font bigger? Does that help? Okay. Okay, so again, we're going to write a program which allows the user that stores a bunch of people and their email addresses. Okay. And this program is going to allow the user to add new people and their email addresses to our collection, to update email addresses for people that are already in the collection, to list all the names and email addresses that we have stored, to look up and see if we have an email address for somebody, and to delete an email address for somebody. Okay. So let's see. This program stores names and associated email addresses. Okay. And all data will be stored in a name, email address dictionary. So in a dictionary of pairs, remember a dictionary contains, that's what I'm trying to say here, is a dictionary contains pairs, of course, and the pairs in our dictionary are going to be names and email addresses. So the names are going to be the keys, and the email addresses are going to be the values. Okay. Okay. So let's see. We're going to be storing all of our data in a dictionary. So I'm going to start out with an empty dictionary. Let's see. I'll call it add book, short for address book. How's that? And it's an empty dictionary. Okay. And so now what I'm going to want to do, I'm going to want this program to be able to allow the user to do one of 6 things. The user is going to be able to add something to my ad book, update something in my ad book, list everything in my ad book, look up to see if somebody's in my ad book, or delete somebody from my ad book, okay? Or exit. Those are the 6 things. And then the user is going to be able to do this over and over and over again, okay, until the user chooses to exit. Kind of the same kind of menu-driven loop that we've been using for a lot of our projects. Okay, so I'm going to basically what I'm going to want to do is print out a menu, okay, and then find out what the user wants to do, carry out what the user wants to do, and print out the menu again, and do this over and over again until the user wants to exit. So I'm going to pretend that I have a function called menu that prints the menu and gets the user choice. Okay, and we'll write that menu in just a second, but if I had a function called menu that printed out the menu, printed out all the user options, and then got the user's choice and returned that, I could call this function in this manner, and then while the user choice is not equal to I'll say 6, because I believe 6 will be what I'll have for exit. Wow. So basically until user wishes to exit. Okay. I'm gonna do stuff. While the user doesn't want to exit, I'm gonna process user choice, And then the last thing I'm going to do in this loop is ask them for another choice. Okay, so this is essentially the body of our little main program here. We have an empty dictionary. It's going to be updated. We're going to get a choice while the user doesn't want to exit. We're going to process that choice. I just have a comment for that now. We'll fill that in later, and then we'll do the menu again. Okay, so just to kind of write things in an incremental manner, I'm going to start off by writing this this function menu. Okay, so way up at the top before anything else. And again, I could be putting it in another module. I just don't want to be flipping files around here in front of you, so I'm just going to put it right here. And so what do we want to do? We want to print out all our options. So we're going to tell the user all their choices. So the choices are 1, add a new entry to the address book. 2 will be update an entry in the address book. 3, we will be listing all the address book contents. And let's see, 4, we will be looking up a name in the address book. So if I want to find out somebody's email address, I can give their name and it should be able to give me their address book, right? That's probably the one that would be used the most. Option 5, delete an entry from the address book. And 6 is going to be to exit. Okay, so these are all of our options. And so the last thing that this function is going to do is it's going to prompt the user for what option they want. And I want the user to enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I'm going to just store it as an int, so I'm going to convert it. So I'm going to ask them, what is your choice? Okay. So when this particular function is called, all that stuff will be printed, and then the user will be asked what they want to do. They'll type it in, and it will at this point be in the variable option, right? And I just want to return that. I want to return that value to where menu was called. Again, I'm putting this in a function because it's something I want to do twice in my main process here. And so I don't want to type it all twice. And again, it gets all that tedious detail out of my main process, so I can just very simply follow the process. And I should be able to run this program too and test it at this point. I should be able to run this program, and it should continually show me the menu until I say I want to exit. So great. So now I run my program. I see the menu. If I say 1, okay, I see the menu again. If I say 3, I see the menu again. 2, I see the menu again. If I say 6, my program exits. So I know that much of my program. works. Okay. Okay, so everybody got that much done? Is that working for everybody? Okay, great. So now we just have to fill in this process the user choice part. We have to check well, if the user entered a 1, we want to add something to our address book. If the user entered a 2, we want to do something else. If they entered a 3, we want to do something else, and so on and so forth. So how do we check if the user, we want to basically do different things depending on what the value of this variable choice is. Okay, if we're in here, we know it's not a 6, we know it's 1 through 5. So, well, if choice is equal to 5, whoops, I'm sorry, 1. If choice is equal to 1, of course I want to add an entry. Okay. Okay, add an entry. So that's what I'll want to do there. I could even kind of set myself up. I also know I'm going to say, well, if choice is equal to 2, whoops, I don't need that. If choice is equal to 2, I'm going to want to update an entry. Also, if choice is equal to 3, I'm going to want to print all names and emails. Else if, and of course I'm using else ifs because I know it can only be 1, so there's no sense using a bunch of separate ifs. If it's 4, I'm going to want to look up an address. And if it's 5, I'm going to want to delete an entry. Okay. And so that's the structure of my program. Okay. I'm only going to do 2 of these to start with. So, but this is the structure of my program. I just have to fill in all these different parts, and my program's all done. Okay. So I'm only going to, I think I'm going to do part 1 first. Okay, so if choice is 1, I want to add an entry. Let's see. To add the entry, I have to do a bunch of stuff. I'm going to have to ask the user for the name. I'm going to have to check if it's already there because I don't want to put duplicate entries in for the same person. And if it's not there, then I'm going to have to get the email address and store it and so forth. If it's already there, I'm going to have to tell them it's already there. Can't add it. So there's a bunch of little things that are going to have to happen here. So I'm going to write a function to do this. Okay. So I'm going to say I'm going to call a function add entry. I'm going to have to write it, of course, but again, I'm just trying to keep my main process simple and clean. Okay. Updating an entry, I'm going to have to, same thing, I'm going to have to check if I'm going to have to ask the user for a name and and then check if it's there because I can't update if it's not there. If it's not there, I'm going to have to give an error message, otherwise I'm going to have to update it. So I'm going to just delegate that to a function that I will write as well. Okay. Again, these functions that I'm calling I haven't written yet, but again, I was just keeping that little main process readable. You know, if I put everything in the main process, it would start to get, you know, hard to read. Choice. Let's see. If I had a dictionary, I know. If I had a dictionary, I know that the names are going to be keys, the values are going to be emails. So I know I could just actually, using using a name, I can access the email. So I would be able to print them all out. Let's see. Do we want to do that yet? Let's do 4 and come back to 3. 3 and 4 are probably the easiest. 4 is probably the absolute easiest. If I had, okay, number 4, we're going to look up an address. If my address book, ad book, contained names and email addresses, where the name was the key and the email address was the value, then I know to print out, if I had a name, which I can get from the user, if I had a name, this is part 4 here, then I know I could just print out their email address by saying print ad book, that's the name of my dictionary, index it with that name. Huh? Oh, you can't see that far? Not yet. Yeah, hold on. Okay, yeah. So, part 4, if I had a name, which I can get, you know how to do that, I could print out their address or I could access their address by using the name as a key, and this would give me the email address, and I could print it. Does that make sense to everybody, this statement here? Remember the name, what we're going to store are name, address pairs. Okay, so if I had the name and I used that as the index, I could print out the address. Okay, and that's all there is to looking up an address and printing it. What if the user, so what if I had an address book that had an email address for Joe in it and had an email address for Sue in it? Again, Joe and Sue are the keys, their email addresses are the values. And the user, when I asked them for a name, entered Louis. Okay, is there a key named Louis? If I only have Joe and Sue in my dictionary, there is no key named Louis. Okay, I couldn't print out Louis' email address because it's not there. So what do you think I should do here in addition to just getting the name and then using that name as a key and printing it? What should I do? Yeah, I should check. Yeah, I should check before I go to do something like this. I should check that that person is actually in the dictionary. Right? This is sort of similar to what I showed you on the board with delete, right? I should check that the person is in the dictionary before I try to print out their address. So I can say if name in ad book, print this. Okay. Else, I'm going to print this person is not in the book. Okay, so does this little segment 4, make sense to everybody? Again, it's kind of, we haven't put anything in the book yet because we haven't done part 1 yet, but if we had a dictionary and it was called ad book and it contained name, email pairs, then if I got a name, I could print out the associated email by basically indexing my dictionary with that name, right? But I'd get an error if I tried to index with something that's not there, right, using illegal indices, right? So I better check that the name is in my address book. The name is a key in my address book before I try to do that, because if the name is not in the address book, I don't want to execute this, and I just want to tell the person, no, I don't have that. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay.
The opposite way with, you have ad book and name in there using the key and the value, and you use the value to find the key.
Can I? No, because the value might not be unique. The keys are going to be unique. Okay, I mean, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't be allowed to either, actually. You actually can't, the keys have to be unique, and if you actually try to add a pair to your dictionary with the key that already exists, it won't do it. The keys have to be unique. Otherwise, like, say I want to look, say I was allowed to have duplicate keys in my dictionary, and I tried to look up two Joes, or look up Joe, how would it know which one I wanted, right? So a dictionary actually won't allow you to put in duplicate keys, but I could actually have two keys with the different keys with the same value. I mean, Joe and Sue might have the same email address. They might be married and both use joesue@yahoo.com, right? So actually there isn't a way to look up a value and get the key. Okay. So, okay, so we have number 4 done. Okay. Print all the names and emails. I'm kind of doing these in the order of easiest. I don't know if that's confusing, but again, you get the concept of a dictionary and what would be in there. So again, if I had chosen number 3, and I wanted to print all the names and the emails, I know how to print one name in an email, right? To print one name in an email, I would just say print. If I had a name and I wanted to print that name and the email, I would just print the name, and then I might print a separator there. And to get their email, I would print add book name. Okay, so this particular statement prints a name, followed by the equal sign, followed by a, to be clearer, maybe I'll make that say email. Followed by the word email, followed by their email address. Okay. If I had a name, I could do that, right? If I had a name. So I want to do this if I'm printing out all the names and emails in the book, I basically want to execute this statement for every single key that's in that dictionary. I want to print it out for all the names in the dictionary. Okay? So I can do this with a for loop. Just like you can print out every element of a list with a for loop, you can do the same thing with a dictionary. So if I say for name in add book, okay, the name is my counter variable here. And name will take on the value, and repeat this statement for each time. Take on the value of each key in this address book and execute the statement. So if I had a dictionary with Joe, Sue, and Roger in it, okay, it's going to first name will have the value Joe, and it'll print out Joe and Joe's email. Then name will be Sue, and it'll print out Sue's email and Sue's name and Sue's email, and then Roger's name and Roger's email. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah?
I think we had time at the end of class.
Yeah.
You could show us how you would do that and have 2 or 3 of them on each line. I found that very challenging.
What do you mean? Have 2 or 3 of them on each line? Let's see. That would be much harder with dictionaries. Yeah, well, yeah, I'll have to think about it. With the lists, you had to use that enumerate, and you had to basically take your index and maybe mod it by 5. So every 5th one, do a print. That's how you kind of do that. So we'd do the same kind of thing here. Yeah, we'd have to basically add a counter, and okay, yeah, I'll show you after class. Yeah. Basically, if you wanted to put 5 per line, this is going to put 1 per line. But if I wanted to because each print's a new line, but if I wanted to do 5 per line, I'd have to put something in here to keep me not from going to the next line, and then count, and every time it's the 5th one, print a new line, something like that. But okay, sure. Okay, so here we're printing out everything 1 per line. Now the thing is, suppose somebody started running the program and the first thing they picked was 3. Well, my address book would be empty, And if my address book was going to be empty, it wouldn't execute anything here, and it wouldn't even print anything. So I might like to check if my address book is empty. And if it is, print out the book is empty. Otherwise, print out the whole book, right? Does that sound like a good idea? Yeah, okay, so how can I tell if it's empty? Well, do you remember with a list, how would you tell if a list was empty? How would you tell if it didn't have any elements in it? It's lengths. Same thing with a string, same thing with a dictionary. So if I say if len of my dictionary is equal to 0, in other words, it's empty, then I'm going to print. No. What? What? Oh, yeah. Duh, yes. Sorry, the name of my dictionary is ad book. I was remembering my thing on the board. Sorry. So no names in dictionary. Okay. Else do this for loop. Else do my for loop. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Again, it would have been okay without the if else. It just, if they picked 3 and there was nothing in it, it just would have come back up with the prompts again, which could have been confusing to the users. This way I'm telling them what's going on. If they pick 3, I'm either telling them, no, there's nothing in there, or I'm giving them all the names in the email. Okay? So it's empty, else. Okay, so now, good, we had part 3 done and part 4 done. Those were the easiest, so we did those first. There's another reason I did those first. We're going to go up to do part 1 now. And part 1, we're not going to be, the only way we can actually tell if we've done part 1, the adding an entry part, correct, is if we have some way to print out our dictionary or check if somebody's in there, right? So I actually wrote the printout part and the lookup part first, so we have a way to check if adding an entry worked. Otherwise, if we write code to add an entry, we don't really have a good way to check if it happened or not, right? Okay, so add entry. We have to come up here and write we're going to write a function. Make sure I called it the same thing I called it down there. Add entry, and I think I capitalized the E. Let's see. I did. Okay. So add entry. So what add entry is going to do is it's going to update items in my dictionary. It's going to add an entry to my dictionary. So it's going to prompt the user for a name and an email and put it in the dictionary. But it's also going to check and make sure that it's not trying to put a duplicate in there. So I'm going to ask the user first, what name do they want to, who do they want to add? What is the name? What's the name for the new entry? Okay. And now I could just go on to ask for the email and then assign it into my dictionary, but I want to make sure that I'm not trying to put a name in there that's already in there. Remember, the name is going to be used as a key. My keys have to be unique. So I don't want to put a name in that's already in there. Okay. So I don't want to use a string for a key that's already being used for a key in my dictionary. So I'm going to check. And we know how to check if name is, well, if I say if name in add book, I'm checking if the name is in there. I really kind of only want to do this Yeah, I'll do it this way. So if name is in add book, I also could say not in and do it the other way around. But if the name's in the address book, I don't want to do anything else. I just want to tell them, sorry, there is already an entry for that name. Okay. Otherwise, else. Well, else now, I know there's nobody in there, I'm ready to do it, right? So, else I need to get the email address, and then I can put the whole thing in my dictionary. So else, email, I'm going to prompt them for the email address. What is their email address? Name and add, again, putting little comments here. So there's a, so on my else part here, I'm going to add to the dictionary. Okay, so I have, at this point, I have my name and I have my email, so I just want to say, well, let's see, what's the name of my dictionary here? Add book. Okay, and add book at name. I'm adding a new element to my address book. Address at name. Add book at name equals email. Okay, that's all I need to do in my function. This function doesn't return any values, it just does what it's going to do. So I can just return. I could have, and maybe it would have been better style thinking about it, but I didn't pass this dictionary as a argument here. Okay, I could have and put an argument in my argument list. I could have done that. I actually didn't have to, because this is not, I didn't have to though, because my my dictionary is not declared inside of any function. It's not created inside of any function. So since it's not created in a function, all my functions actually have access to it directly. Okay. But I could have done that. Okay. So now let's see. Now we should be able to. We're almost ready to test everything. We actually could test. We have a way to add an entry. If they pick one, we have a way to print everything out so we can tell if we added an entry. We have a way to look up an entry, so it would be a good time to do some testing. Right now, in order to do testing, I have to add this update entry thing, which I haven't written yet. So if I try to run this, I'm going to get an error because it doesn't know what update entry is. I might get an error. So I'm just going to write a little dummy empty update entry, just so that in case the, I'm just going to write that just so I have something for update entry in case the interpreter complains. It might not complain because it might not try to run it, but try to execute if I remember not to type a 2, but let's just put that there. Okay, so let's see if we can run this now. We should be able to add. Okay, unexpected indent. Okay, what did I indent? Let's see. Oh. Okay, I have my indentations off here. Let's see. I have that way down there to push that up. I'll do that again, but I think my indentation's off somewhere. Let me see. It's because it thinks it's part of the else. I don't have anything in my elif. It's giving me a problem there. what do I want to put there? Okay. Okay, we're going to have another method, delete entry. Let's just put that in our elif. It thinks this choice is the part of my else, and I didn't indent it. That's the problem. So I'm going to actually put something here. Let me make sure you can see it. I'll put, gosh, okay. See, it thought that my next statement right here is my choice, and it said, why is this not being indented as part of your if? Well, it really isn't part of my if. I don't want it in my if, and I didn't have anything here. So I'm just going to put this method here, this method call here, delete entry. Okay. And put a dummy up here for that one too, just so we remember to code it. Okay, so you want to have a dummy for update entry and a dummy for delete entry, and just have a little call to delete entry under choice 5. Okay, does that make sense? Then the interpreter will not complain about anything that we're doing. Okay, so now we should be able to run it. Okay, our choices. Now if I put a 1, it's asking me for a name. Sue Jones, and her email address is blah 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 at yahoo.com. Now we could get real fancy in our ad and look at the string that they enter and make sure it's a valid email address. We could do that too if we felt like it. Okay, so I've just entered that, and now I get the menu again. So if I type a 3, I should see that. A 3 shows me everything in my dictionary. So I type a 3, it shows me, yeah, here's Sue Jones, and her email is what I just typed. Okay. Is this working for everybody? And I'm going to try a 1 and put somebody else in here, Ron Smith, and his email address is yyyy@gmail.com. And again, if this program, I was really typing this, I might really coding this to be used, I might, in that add method, their email before I store it, I might actually look through it and double check that there's an add sign in there and the whole deal. Okay, and so after you add your second item, again, try a 3 again and see if it shows you both of your entries. It should show you both. And another thing that we can test, another choice we can do also is 4. Okay, if I do 4 and I give the name and I give Sue Jones, okay, I should see her. It should give me her email address. Okay. Or if I type it, or if I give a choice of 4 and I type in something else for a name that I don't have, it should tell me this person is not in the book. Okay, and that's how we can tell that we've entered things correctly, that we've and that's all getting there. Does everybody have that working? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, now I'm going to type a 6 and that should exit, right? Okay. Now, I want to show you something, and we're going to talk about how to fix it, because this is similar to something you have to do in your program. Wait a minute, I'm going to try to get this up at the top. Hold on. Okay, now here, so let me put something in here. We know I'm going to add somebody. Okay, add somebody. I'm going to add Joe. Okay, and their email address. Okay, and now if I type a 4 and go to look up Joe's email address, I should see it, right? We know that that works. Now, when I entered Joe, I entered it, if you notice, with lowercase J-O-E. I'm trying to look somebody up. Let's suppose I say J-O-E. Do you think it's going to find him? It's not going to find him. It's going to say they're not in the book. Now, that should work. That's simple enough to fix, isn't it? That's simple enough to fix. How do you think an easy way to fix this would be? What strategy? We did. Yeah, store it a particular way. Okay. So here in add entry, I'm going to, when I have my name. Okay. When I have my name, down here my else part, before I actually do the storage, I'm going to change name to uppercase, and I can do that by using the upper method that I can use with strings. If I say name.upper, that returns a brand new string, because remember a string is an immutable object, so it returns a brand new string that I'm assigning back to the variable name that is all uppercase. So I know I'm storing all my names in uppercase. This is similar to something that you're going to be doing in your project. I have you storing things with just the first letter uppercase to give you something to think about, but same strategy. If I know that I do all my storages a particular way, then when I do my lookups, if I make the same conversion, I can compensate for user, when the user types things in all different cases. So here I'm storing it as all uppercase. So what else do I have to do so this will work for my lookup? When I look up the address, I have to do what? I have to do the same thing. I have to look it up with all uppercase. So I'm going to do the same thing. If my name, down in section 4, if the name is in the address book, I want to do my lookup with an all uppercase key as well, because that's the way I stored it. Okay? So here I'm converting to my storage format for my lookup. Okay. Is this making sense to everybody? Otherwise we could have a program that is reasonably working wonderfully, but if the user doesn't type things in exactly the same case every time, it might not work. So let's just double check that does work. It's always a good idea to double check every change that you make. All right, let me do this up high where everybody can see it. Okay, so 1, Joe, and all lowercase, and their email address is blah, blah, blah. Oops. Their email address is blah, blah, blah. And now what's my choice for, oops, where am I here? What's my choice for? My name is Joe, and so it should give me the ZZZZ as my email address. Whoa. Okay, we did something wrong. Well, it's a good thing we tested it then. Let's see. My name is Joe. My name was Joe. Well, let's look and see. That should have worked. Did it work for you? Let's see. What did I do wrong here? Name is name.upper. Wait a minute. No, I changed it before I used it. Well, I'm only going to look it up in my if. So I don't really I don't need to do it before my if because oh yeah, yes. I'm sorry, silly. Yeah, good call. Okay. Yeah, so I actually do have to do it before the if, or it's not even going to know it's in there. What am I doing? Oh my gosh. Okay. Good. Okay, yeah, I have to do it before the if, or it's not even going to find it. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So now it should work. All right. Okay, so my choice. 1, there's Joe, XXXX, and I'm going to do 4, and I'm going to type him differently, and I should get it. Okay? Okay. Perfect. So good. So now we have part 1 working, 1, 3, and 4 working. We just have to do 2 and 5. Okay? Okay. So for part 2, we just have to code update entry. I think that's going to look a lot like add entry. For update entry, we want to find out we want to get the name, and in this case, well, if their name is in, it's just like add, except for one little thing. There's a little error. There's a little error in my add. Just glancing at it. It's similar to the same thing that we did before. Logically. Where do I want to change my name to uppercase, and why?
When you first enter the name.
Yeah, otherwise I might have duplicates, huh? Because I'm checking if the name's in there and the name's in a different format. So I definitely, before I even do the check there, I want to update it. The minute I get it, I want to update it to uppercase before I do anything else with it. Okay, so what's the name for the entry? Check it to uppercase before I check if it's in there. Otherwise, I could actually be trying to put 2 of them in there, which I actually can't remember if we're going to get an error or it just ignores and doesn't do. Okay? Okay, so now for update entry. Update entry is going to look a lot like add entry. The only thing that's going to be different, for update entry, we're going to want to get a name, change it to uppercase, but now if it's in the address book, we're going to want to print out the email address. If it's not in the address book, we want to print out an error. So if it's not in the address book, we want the error. So we are actually going to start out with these same 3 lines. So I'm going to copy them just to save. Okay, so I'm going to start out by getting a name, changing it to uppercase, and then if it's not in the address book, I can't update it. So if it's not in the address book, I'm going to print an error message. Okay. Otherwise, I can update it, and I want to get an email and put it in there. So what is their new? I'm updating it. So let's see, what's their new email address? There's a space. So there's a space between not and in. Sorry, my space bar doesn't always work. So here we're getting a name, changing it to uppercase before we do our lookup, because everything in the dictionary is in uppercase. And if the name is not in the address book, we're going to print can't do it. Otherwise, get that email address and update it. Okay, and gonna we're going to run it and see. I'm going to we'll run it to test it. Run it, put somebody in there. Let's see, so I'm going to run it with a 1. We'll use Joe again. His email address is YYYY. I'm going to type a 3 to see everybody in my book. There's Joe. And then I'm going to do a 2. Whoops. Okay. Okay, I'm getting an error. You're going to tell me what's wrong with this. It's pretty Spelling, yeah. It's telling me update entry does not exist when that, and we know we just made update entry, right? So when I called it with a capital D. When I defined it, I didn't use a capital D. So the name that I call it by has to look like the name that I'm, the name I define it by has to be the exact same as the name that I call it by. Okay. So try that again. You probably had it right. Okay, so we want to put somebody in there, make sure they're in there, and try to update them so that we can test that that works. I'm just going to use C. Okay, he's in there, and then I'm going to say 2 to update. What's 2 for the update? What's the name? Joe, and his new address is BBBB. And then if I type 3 again to see everybody, I should see Joe with the new email address. Is that working for everybody? Everybody got that? Okay. Then delete entry, once we finish this particular function, delete entry. Just checking that I spelled it correctly. Then we'll be all done. So delete entry is gonna, again, oops, give that a second. It's gonna remove, yes, you're connected, let's go. Okay, delete entry. It's just going to remove everybody from the, not everybody, I'm sorry, remove one person from the dictionary. So we have to ask for their name. So let's get their name. Who do you want to delete? Okay. And we know the statement to delete them is well, we've got to change to uppercase. And then we know the statement to delete them will just be to delete add book name. But we don't want to do this delete thing unless we're absolutely sure the person's in there, right? Because again, trying to delete something with a key that is not in the dictionary is an error. Okay, and our program would crash, so we don't want to do that. So we need to check that they're in there before we try to do it. So if name is in add book, we'll do the deletion. Else we'll say they're not there. We could even get fancy right here in our if part and go on and before we do the deletion, after we check that they're there, have them confirm that they want to, ask them again, are you sure you want to do this, yes or no, and so forth. We could get fancy there and give them an extra chance. Okay, so if we wanted to do that, we would. I'm not going to do it here, but right before the delete, I'd put if, I'd print out, are you sure you want to delete so-and-so found, sure you want to delete so-and-so, and give them the choice to answer. You say yes or no, and if they say yes, do the deletion. If they say no, don't do anything. I could do all that, just like you see in programs that you run, right? So we could do that. Okay, so let's test if this works, and if this works, we're all done. So we're going to run it. And let's see, put a couple people in there, print it, delete one, print it again. Okay, Joe, C, 1, Sue, XXXX, and they're both there. I'm gonna try to delete one. Who do I want to delete? I want to delete Joe. Okay, so you should try to put 2 in, delete 1, put 2 in, print 2 or 3 in, print all of them, delete 1, print it again, and make sure that that one was deleted. Okay. And that is, and that is our whole program today. Okay, so does everybody feel like they have a good idea of what a dictionary is and how to manipulate a dictionary? Okay, one thing I didn't use in this program, I didn't actually use any of the, thinking about it, I didn't use any of the methods that you can use with a dictionary. I didn't print out, I didn't use items, or I didn't use the items method or the keys method or the values method. But again, those would just be like function calls that we use after the name of the dictionary. And again, you'll see plenty of examples of those in your reading. Okay, well then, if there aren't any